are now 7 races total in Blox Fruits, and in this video, we're going to be ranking them all in a tier list to find out which race is the best. Now, there's going to be 2 lists total, one for V3 and one for V4, and we're going to be ranking each race based on 3 categories. How cool they are, the buffs and abilities they come with, and how good they are for PvP and grinding. And we're starting with one of the most basic races in the game, the Mink race. Now, if you spawned in as a Mink, consider yourself lucky because you only have a 12.5% chance of spawning as a Mink on a brand new account. Mink is also one of the races that actually gives you physical changes to your body. You guys can see we have bunny ears, and if you upgrade this race later on, you even get a tail. Now, one cool passive you get with Mink is you have a 1.5 times speed multiplier above every other race in the game. So I think you guys have an idea of what Mink's ability is going to be around. Now, when upgrading this race to its V2 state, you actually get even more speed boosts. We go from 1.5 times base speed up to 2 times base speed. You also get your dash distance slightly increased, and it takes half the amount of energy that it used to take. So y'all can see this race is really just built for running, and that gets solidified even more with our V3. If you look down on the bottom of our screen, you guys see we have an ability called agility, which is pretty self-explanatory what that does. When activating this, you get a 4 times speed multiplier for 5 seconds. And when you get the V3, that's actually when you get the physical change of having a tail. Now, all the speed boosts you get from the Mink race are very good, especially for PvP, being able to dash in land combos, being quick enough to dash out in void combos, or even run if you have to. But when it comes to V3s alone, while it is pretty good, it's not really doing you any favors for grinding, and there are definitely way better ones for PvP. Here are all the tiers we have in the list. We have Godly up front, Insane, Good, Meh, and Piece of Garbo. And to start this video off with Mink, I'm gonna put Mink V3 up in the good tier. Mink mains, don't come at me. But up next, we have one of the most boring races in the game, the human race. This one you have a 62.5% chance of spawning with on a brand new account. So yeah, it's the easiest race to obtain in the game. It also has no physical changes no matter what you have, V3 or V4, no physical changes whatsoever. And on top of that, you get no passive boosts or buffs in V1 base. But the question is human V2 and V3 good? Now for human V2, you actually get a few good things. First one being doubled flash step distance. Here's the maximum flash step distance of a normal race, and if you go with human, you can see it's double the length, a lot further. Flash step cooldown is also decreased to 10 seconds instead of 15 seconds, so you guys can see we get it a lot quicker than other races. And on top of that, human V2s actually get an extra boost by having more Ken dodges than any other race. You can see down here we have 9 out of 9 Ken dodges. Every other race in the game has 8 by default. This, in my opinion, makes human V2 one of the best V2s to obtain in the game. But is that true for V3? Looking down below, you guys can see we have an ability called Last Resort, and this is what it looks like when you activate it. Now what this does is basically makes you deal more damage the lower health you are. To give you guys a quick example, this is how much damage I do by an M1 in base, 2,611. Now, if I let myself get really low by this NPC here, now we are well under half health, so let me activate V3 again, and my M1s do 3,198, a significant boost in damage. And that wasn't even the maximum you can go. For V3, you get a maximum of 52.25% damage boost, but you have to be less than 20% health to even get that high. Which, if you ask me, is kind of mid. I don't want to have to be damn near dead to be able to do more damage. So for that reason, I'm sorry, man, but human V3 has got to go in Piece of Garbo tier, man. It's just not that good. But while human V3 may have been trash, I promise you this next race isn't. Now, this next race is actually one of the 3 races you can obtain by doing a quest line. And if you go to a haunted ship and talk to this NPC here, he will change you to the race. And of course, we're talking about the Ghoul race. Now, Ghoul is actually one of the most interesting and intricate races in the game. As you guys can see, we do get some physical changes in this one by having black horns. And on top of that, we actually get some interesting buffs and passives in base. For simply existing as a Ghoul, you get slightly increased health regeneration, and you get a 30% extra speed boost during the night, which, while it might not be completely comparable to Mink, the speed boost itself is pretty nice. But trust me, this gets even better in V2. In V2, we unlock a passive ability called Lifeless. And just to give you all an example of what it is, I'm gonna let myself get low by this NPC, and I'm gonna deal damage. Now, 5% of the damage I deal to this NPC converts back to my life, helping me regen slightly. And while that may not seem that crazy because it's only 5% against NPCs, it goes up significantly against players. Because as you can see, according to the wiki, the user heals back 25% of the damage done to players with fighting style. This used to also apply to sword damage, but they did nerf that, making it to where you only get life leech on the fighting style abilities. Still pretty good though. But that is not the best thing about the Ghoul race, not even close. If you look down below, we have an ability called Heightened Senses, and this is really insane. Now before I demonstrate this ability, I'm gonna get a move on cooldown real quick to show you how OP this is. I'm gonna use God, Human, Heaven, and Earth, and then we're gonna activate Heightened Senses. Now this gives you a few buffs like speed and extra damage, but what's most important is you see my moves still on cooldown, right? Well, we're able to still use it. That's exactly what heightened senses does. It lets the player use moves when at 40% cooldown, and this includes M1s or any cooldown in the game, making this honestly one of the best V3s in the entire game for PvP. Just imagine this scenario, boys. You're in the middle of a PvP match, you have no cooldowns, right? You wouldn't be able to fight back normally, but with Ghoul V3, now you can use abilities when they still have 40% cooldown left, basically making you have double the amount of moves coming out as your opponent. And this also applies for grinding. I mean, more moves coming out equals more damage. How's that a bad thing for grinding? All of these factors considered, in my opinion, makes this race go straight up in godly tier, man. Top 3 V3 in my opinion. And if you disagree with that, let's debate about it in the comments below. Now, moving up next, we have the Shark race, which is one of the spawnable races that you have a 12.5% chance of spawning with. So once again, if you spawn in with this on a new account, consider yourself lucky. Now, one thing about the Shark race is when you spawn in by default, you actually get a passive that makes it to where you take less damage in water as a fruit user. And you also get increased swim speed, so you about to be Michael Phelpsing it out over here. Now, the V2 for this race improves that even further, because now we have full immunity to water damage as a devil fruit user, and your base speed and swim speed is also increased. And just to demonstrate, I clearly have the portal equipped right now, but when I go in water, I take 0 damage. I mean, we're not even taking an inch of health, which makes this for sea exploration and farming actually the best race to use as a devil fruit user, which is just the tip of the iceberg for how broken this race can be. I mean, those are all cool passives, but when it comes to our V3 ability, water body, this is the reason why you'd want this race. Just to give you a clear-cut example how good this could be, we're heading to 3rd sea. These are some of the highest level NPCs in the game, and just can see they deal a lot of damage to me. But when I activate Shark V3, the damage is significantly reduced, by 70% to be exact. So I think y'all can see the trend with Shark race. It's all about defense. Defense in the water and defense with the water body ability, which honestly makes this race really sought after for PvP. I mean, if you're just straight up getting one-shot comboed, all you have to do is just activate V3 to make them deal way less damage. And aside from PvP, this is also really good for farming. I mean, imagine any applicable situation you're about to die. Just pop V3 and you're living longer. Unfortunately, this did get nerfed. It used to be 80% defense boost, and now it is 70. And on top of that, it used to last for 6.5 seconds, and now it only lasts 4.5 seconds. At best, the Shark V3 ability most of the times just delays the inevitable. Most players know how to get around it, and I say other V3s are more worth having. That said, though, it's still easily going in insane tier. 3 V3 races left. And for this next race, this is actually the second of the 3 races in the game that you have to complete a quest line to obtain. If we teleport over a place called Lab and go under here and talk to this thing, you will see we can switch over to the Cyborg race, which costs 2,500 fragments. And yes, even after completing this, you have to pay that every time you want to go back to the race, which is insane. But if we accept, we can see this is what the Cyborg race looks like. And before we even get into all the abilities of Cyborg, let's just go through the obtainment process of this. This is the second hardest race to obtain in the game, and to get it, you have to complete a quest line called the Cyborg puzzle. Now, the first step of the Cyborg puzzle is you got to get yourself a Fist of Darkness, which has a 1% chance of dropping for a sea beast, or you've got to wait 4 hours and get it from a random chest. After getting the Fist of Darkness, you have to sacrifice it in the Law raid and then fight Law to get a Core Brain, which only has a 5% chance of dropping. And then you've got to go to that lab thing I talked to and pay 2,500 fragments. Me personally, it took me days to obtain this race, which is insane. So imagine a mobile player trying to obtain this. It can get tough, but it is worth it. Now, for the base V1 passives of this race, there's nothing. Yeah, you literally get no base passives or boosts or anything in V1. But for V2, that's when things start getting interesting. In V2 state, Cyborg gets a 10% defense against melee, sword, and gun attacks, making you slightly more tanky, and 15% of the damage you deal converts to energy, making this race really good for hybrid races. I mean, every bit of damage you deal actually converts towards your energy, allowing you to fight a little longer, which that V2 is all right. I mean, it's not really like the craziest thing, but trust me, the V3 is where it gets kind of nutty. Energy Core is the name of our V3, and I'm just going to demonstrate what this thing does. When you use it, you put out electrical energy, which deals a total of over 4,900 damage. This ability both breaks, can, and interrupts combos, and you could use this thing while you're being attacked or if you're attacking yourself, making this ability both the ultimate defense and offense in literally every applicable situation. I mean, let me break it down to you like this. You could pair Cyborg with some of the worst fruits or swords in the game, and I'm sure you could find a way to create a one-shot combo with it, just because of this skill alone. And I mean, just look at this. This looks kind of fire, bro. Like, you can't tell me this don't look saucy. For all of the reasons alone, man, Cyborg, in my opinion, goes all the way at godly, even above Ghoul. Now, up next, we have one of the most hated races in the game, which you will see why later, the Angel race. Now, this, of course, is one of the spawnable races in the game, and just like the other ones, you have a 12.5% chance of spawning on this from a brand new account. Obviously, for this one, as being an angel, we get wings that upgrade and get bigger the more you upgrade your race. And as for any base passives or boosts, it's kind of boring. All we get is jump height is increased in base. That's literally it. It's kind of mid. But for Angel V2, it also doesn't get better. Literally for Angel V2, all we get is both extended double jump and we get 11 air jumps instead of 10, which which I guess is useful in some situations, but it's also not that good. However, looking down below, we have an ability called Heavenly Blood, which is our V3 ability, and this is where things get a little better. Now, to put this simply, I'm gonna let myself get low by this boss right here. He's got me down to 9,300 health now, and I'm gonna activate Heavenly Blood. And you can see my health is increasing significantly. This lasts for 4.5 seconds, and yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory what this is. Basically, for 4.5 seconds, you can heal up to 14% of your maximum health and 10% of your maximum energy. Mainly good for PvP, to be honest. I mean, it really promotes kind of running and spamming. I mean, like, imagine you're low, you could just hit this, V3, kind of run away, come back when you're healed up, and then rinse and repeat. Which is why I said this is honestly one of the most hated races, because angels kind of have a reputation for running and healing. This, however, just got nerfed like literally a few days ago. The Angel V3 used to heal up to 20% of your maximum HP and last for 6.5 seconds, but it's just been nerfed to 14% and down to 4.5 seconds, and got an even longer cooldown. Now, normally I probably would have put Angel in the godly tier because the heal used to be insane, but because of the nerf, it's gonna go at the bottom of insane tier, just barely behind Shark, which I know some of you may disagree with, but I think that nerf is pretty significant. And now there's only one more final race to do in V3. Once you're in 3rd Sea, if you teleport over to Hydra Town, go up to the Dragon Dojo and talk to this NPC, the Dragon Wizard. He will convert you to the Draco race. But let me just tell you right now, the Draco race obtainment is the hardest race to obtain in the game. I'm talking, this would literally take you like 2-3 days minimum to obtain this race, and it has like the longest quest line known to man. I mean, just to give y'all a basic rundown, this is the obtainment process on the wiki, and just look at this. It's like a whole bible of just steps you have to do to obtain this race and evolve it. But luckily, it is very much worth it, because this race may just be one of the best. Now, first off, just existing as a Draco in a race, you get a 5% damage reduction boost and 5% HP increase above all other races, which is honestly pretty good. 5% doesn't sound like a lot, but it goes a long way in PvP, trust me. Like, I literally have 14,000 health with just one of the most basic accessories, Pilot Helmet. And if you were to pair this up with something like Leviathan Shield, 14,800 on top of the defense boost. It's actually kind of insane. But let's get into the V2. Now, for the V2, you get a speed boost. You also get a dash boost. Your dash goes further distance, and you get 2 more things. First one being, if you jump a few times and hold space, we get a flight. This only goes straight up. However, you can't really glide down like Angel V4. So this is kind of like Angel V4 flight from Wish, but it's honestly pretty good. I mean, like, this is the most unique V2 we have in the game. And as for that last thing we get in V2, our flash steps are now changed and deal damage. Look at that, over 3,120 damage just from our flash step. So we basically get an extra move, and that isn't even the best part about this race. Down below, we have Primordial Rain, and this V3 gets kind of crazy. Now, this V3 is a bit complicated, but let's try to simplify it. So whenever you press it, you summon a large AoE, which buffs you and debuffs enemies. For me, it gives me a 15% damage and speed boost. Towards enemies, it gives them a minus 15% speed debuff. So they get slower while you deal more damage. And it lasts for 10 seconds and even buffs allies. But that isn't even the best part about this move, ladies and gentlemen. No, it's not. Just like Cyborg V3, Primordial Rain also interrupts combos. So say I'm being hit by an NPC, right? Being M1 or whatever, I can stop it temporarily by doing that and start a combo of my own. So any combos that have barrages or moves that need to be held can instantly be interrupted with Primordial Rain. And even one-shot combos will also be interrupted. Either way you look at it, it's a top tier race with a top V3 ability. So it's going in godly tier, and I'm even going to put it above Ghoul. So this is the complete V3 tier list, and I honestly think I did a pretty good job on it. But now it's time to get into the V4s. And we're starting off with Mink V4. Now, every race when transforming into V4 gets a set of boosts. We get, I think, like 10% more speed, damage, and a few other boosts. And on top of that, every single stat is maxed out. From melee all the way to Blox Fruits is 2,600. Each race also gets 2 unique abilities in V4 state. And for Mink, the first one is called Whirlwind. Whenever we dash, you guys can see little tornadoes are left behind, which actually gives us a chance to run and deal damage at the same time. They also stun a little bit, so it's pretty cool. Now, our second ability is called Lightning Cloak. Our dashes are much further distance. You guys can see this little green ore around us when we dash. It's basically allowing our dash to go even much further. And if you upgrade this gear to its full state and hold Q, you get a super dash, which follows in line with the trend of Mink just being really fast. And this isn't even with V3, so stack it with V3, yeah, we instantly become like literally the fastest race in the game. Good luck catching a Mink runner in public servers. Now, obviously this race is pretty cool, but I think it falls flat when you're comparing it to other V4s, which we'll get into later. But overall, it's pretty decent. I mean, just look at this visually. You can't tell me this don't look fire. Although I will say, kind of moving like a furry right now. But overall, I'm gonna put Mink V4 straight up in the good tier. Yeah, pretty much the same for V3 and V4. It's just overall good, but there's much better options. Let me see which race we get next. I'm gonna buy a change race real quick. Oh, let me get human. All right. Now, with human V4, we get 2 simple abilities. But before we get to that, let me just say, this is the most saucy and cool V4 of all time. I mean, like, just look at this pose, bro. That man's saucy. Now, if you guys look down below, you guys can see we have 2 things, 3 bars and a number. And we're gonna get into the bars first. These are flash steps. You get 3 of them, and they replenish over time. Another thing to note is that on the first flash step, you become invisible, and your moves have hyper armor, so they can't be interrupted. Now, this used to be all 3 dashes would be invisible, but now it only is the first one that becomes invisible. You guys can see all other 2 no longer do that, so it got nerfed recently. Now, the other ability you get with human V4 is this meter right here. You guys can see the more damage I deal, the numbers is going up, and this also applies for if I'm taking damage. And it's pretty self-explanatory. The higher the number, the more damage we deal. You guys can see right now we're at 70, and per M1, we're dealing 3,846. And if we compare that to my base damage, you guys can see I only deal 2,611. So the boost is actually pretty crazy, and that wasn't even with V3. The rage meter goes up to a total number of 100, but if you have that gear upgrade, it goes up to 150. This also got nerfed, unfortunately, though. Just this recent update, limit break rage damage scaling was decreased by 25%, which is a massive nerf. So despite how cool human V4 is, I mean, it's actually one of my favorite looking V4s. I ain't gonna lie, you ain't gonna catch me using it. So for that, it's going straight into meh tier. Blox Fruits, you done killed my boy. Hey, I have a feeling people are gonna complain about that human ranking, but hey, I got a massive nerf. What can I say? Now let's see which race the game chooses for me next. Ooh, the shark race. This is gonna be an interesting one. Now the shark race is actually 2 pretty cool abilities. Now as you can see, there's this shark right now floating around me, and this is a shield. There's also a blue shield appearing on my health right now. This reduces the damage you take significantly. You guys can see if I go over my ult to hit me, you guys can see I'm taking virtually no damage. And this can be stacked with V3 as well, making you for a short period of time take near 100% reduced damage. This ability is called Leviathan's Arm. As you guys see, the more damage I deal to my opponent, the more the shield regenerates. This ability alone honestly makes this one of the most annoying things to deal with in public servers because, I mean, like, you're gonna be dealing damage, and if he has V3, your entire combo just gets negated. In my opinion, the most annoying part to deal with is the second ability, Whirlwind. Whatever damage I deal to an opponent, it slows him. You guys can see there's this little water effect at the bottom of him. The more I hit him, the stronger the slow gets. Now there's an entire whirlpool on him, and if we go over to my ult account, you guys can see I'm moving significantly slower. This lasts for a while, and you can keep hitting him constantly to make the slow last pretty much as long as you want it to. Fighting against good shark V4 users is really annoying, but that said, there is better V4s in the game, but due to how the abilities are, in my opinion, it's gotta go in insane. 4 more races left, but for this one, I'm spinning the wheel to see which one we rate next. And we get... ooh, the Draco race, the newest race in the game. Now, as for the Draco race, it has some pretty unique abilities to it. First of all, upon activation, there's this massive circle, and I don't even have this thing fully upgraded, so it gets even bigger. Pause. But for our first ability, we have Thorn Mail. Now, put simply, what Thorn Mail does is it reflects 45% of the damage your opponent does to you back to them. I'm dealing damage just by being hit right now by this NPC. And if you upgrade this gear fully, it reflects up to 64% damage back to your opponent, which already alone makes this one of the most insane races in the game. And that's not even it. For our second ability, we have Calmetic Field. Basically, whenever you deal damage to an enemy, it summons orbs around them. And if you hit them 3 times, it explodes. And basically, this applies to anyone in the area of your circle. So let's say I gathered all these NPCs here. I'm fighting all of them. Boom. Look at that. 23,885 damage spread across everyone in the circle. So not only are you reflecting damage your opponent deals to you back to them, every bit of damage you do in your combos gets rewarded even more damage because of the orbs. And this also is really good at repelling teamers because whoever's in your AoE is also going to take damage from the orb. So it forces them to have to spread out. And if that wasn't enough to convince you how cool this race is, I mean, just look at this, bro. Look at this pose, bro. This is straight just ore right here. Literally. Not much to say else about this one, man. Draco V4, straight godly tier. I ain't debating with anyone on that. Now, for the next race, okay, Cyborg. Okay, that's fire. Now, for the Cyborg race, first of all, just look how saucy this pose is. Like, look at this. We have purple auras. We get that nice little glowing wings in the back. Sheesh. Can't tell me it don't cook. Now, the Cyborg race is actually not that complicated. We have 2 abilities, and the first one is called Energy Core. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to teleport to Chocolate Land. Now, basically, put simply, what Energy Core does is it deals orb damage to players nearby, which is actually kind of similar to Draco V4, except kind of better. To put simply, you damage one, you damage them all in the nearby area, which automatically makes this the best thing for grinding and for jump combos in PvP. Just like the Draco race, this forces them to have to spread out because if you attack one, you're literally attacking them all. Oh, I just died? Okay, well, I guess I'm trolling. All right, we're back in V4. Now, another thing this actually gives if you upgrade it to full max is what you saw right there, super jumps, which makes this honestly in terms of speed low-key competing with Mink v4. It's gonna be honestly really hard to catch anyone that's in Cyborg v4, and there's actually a glitch you can do to make the move even stronger. So you pair Cyborg v4 with Skull Guitar, do a Soul Guitar M1 as soon as you jump, and look at the distance I just got flown. Yeah, good luck catching a Cyborg user in public servers. Now the last ability this actually has is called Aftershock, and basically it applies damage. You guys can see that little thing lingering there, which basically does damage over time and deactivates Ken. So we have two Ken breakers, V3 and Aftershock. Not really much else to say about this race, man. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Being able to hit multiple enemies within a small radius is just busted. I don't really know what to tell you if you don't agree. Like, look at this. One ability, literally damaging everything. Killed everybody in this area with one ability. It's gonna be the best in grinding. It's gonna be the best in public servers against jumpers. You name it, it's good for any applicable scenario. Cyborg also going straight godly tier. Ghoul and Angel left, 50-50 chance. Let's see which race we rate next. And it's Ghoul. Ghoul's an interesting one and a bit complex. Now, Ghoul v4 is currently my main race in the game, and it actually does quite a bit. Now, the first ability is called Life Leech, and yes, it sounds familiar, except it's way stronger than what it is in v2. So you guys can see I'm actually kind of low right now, but 10% of the damage I deal to NPCs are now healing me. You guys can see every hit, we hear that little sound effect there, that little doom. 10% of the damage you deal on NPCs will heal your health, but on players it's 40%. So just to give you guys an example, I got really low for my ult right here, but I'm about to do one attack on him, and look at that. I'm already back up to 5,000 health. Another attack, 7,000. That's 2,000 health from one attack. And if you max out the Blood Siphon gear completely according to Wiki, it heals up to 60% on attack. One strategy Ghoul v4 users do whenever they get low is they go up to a big body NPCs to just damage them all, just to start getting a bunch of health, and then go back in the fight, which is honestly both good for PvP and grinding. It's insane. Pair that with the cooldown reduction of v3, this already with this ability alone is crazy. And now let's get into the second ability, which is this black hole you see under me. This is called Domain Expansion, and it does two things. First thing being, you see these crows right here. Whenever I dash, these crows attack anybody nearby. See that? The crows are attacking. I'm literally dealing damage just by dashing. Kind of similar to Mink v4. And the second thing it does is whenever someone steps inside my domain, you guys can see it blinds them, it slows them, and it slows down regen. Another factor to this Domain Expansion is it makes cooldowns 20% faster. So you pair it together with the v3, you're gonna be spamming moves all day long. Just to give y'all a perfect example, I'm gonna go leopard right here, boys. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about. Finger revolver. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Another finger revolver. All these other abilities. Another finger revolver. That's 3 finger revolvers in the span of like 2 seconds. Yeah, the spam is crazy with Ghoul v4, which is currently why I'm maining it. But despite how broken it seems, I personally don't think it's just good enough to be in godly tier, but it is gonna go at the top of insane tier. Just my personal opinion, don't get upset at me. And with Ghoul out the way, that leaves only one race left to rate, the Angel race. Let me go ahead and get my v4 bar real quick. Now, Angel v4, one of the most annoying races to deal with. Now, first off, we have Prince of the Skies, the first ability. And as you guys can see, this pose looks pretty fire. We get extra wings and everything. And y'all about to see what Prince of the Skies does. If you jump up and hold space, we can levitate in the air freely if we want. And also, if you jump higher and hold Q, we can glide down, fly up, and run around. This is why I said Angel is one of the most hated races in the game. Commonly in PvP servers, you'll see people do this, heal, and just run away. Now, the secondary ability of Angel is called King's Rule. You guys see this little aura on the ground beneath me? Well, when you go up to somebody, it brings them to their knees, stuns them, and slows their regen. Also deals a ton of damage. Look at that. So let me give you a realistic scenario right here. I'm just an Angel v4 chilling right here, right? Someone comes up to me, stuns me, thinking they're gonna start a combo, but I interrupt their combo instantly because my King's Rule stuns them, and I get an opportunity now to combo them back. This is why Angel v4 is so annoying to deal with. It pretty much negates any combo or fruit that forces you to have to be up in people's faces. And couple that with the fact that you could run away at any time and just swoop back in and combo them. Hey, this makes this easily one of the best races in the game, both for grinding and PvP, to be honest. So I mean, just look at this. Against bosses, you could just straight up stun them and just deal with them this way. It makes boss farming so easy. Look at this. He can't even do anything, bro. He can't even do anything. He gets stunned every second. Easy work. Easy work. Look at this. One of the strongest bosses in the game about to be dead in literal seconds with ease. Just like that. Now for Angel v4, it can't go anywhere else other than straight godly tier, and I'm actually going to put it above Cyborg v4. Now you could argue that Cyborg is better than Angel, but I feel like Angel is more consistent in 1v1s, whereas Cyborg is better for when there's a bunch of people. But this right here is the complete v4 list along with the complete v3 list. In my opinion, I'm putting Draco in first place, Angel in second place, and Cyborg in third. Comment down anything you may disagree with, but I personally feel like this is a pretty accurate tier list.